Hey, what's up? Uh, let me preface this video by saying one, that I'm responding to a question that I specifically got from somebody in Shift 30. Um, and I haven't followed up with that person specifically, so I don't know, the nuances of the question. So if you're watching this, please follow up with me, in our group DM or wherever you want, and let me know if anything I say in here is helpful or if I'm totally off the mark, and I'll and we can chat, and maybe I'll make another video or we just talk privately, whatever. So there's that. Also, I'm eating some frozen berries, so there might be some like crunchy noises. Sorry for that. But yeah, so the question that I wanted to address tonight is, how do you guys deal with not finding handle words? A big unlocking for me was when I actively tried to suggest handles, but most of the time I quickly run out of words to try. So again, I'll do my best to interpret the question as it makes sense to me and answer that. But so yeah, finding handle words. So like, where to begin? Well, I'll begin with what this person already said, right? Is that the actively trying to suggest handles. Obviously, they're saying this works a bit. It unlocked some stuff for them, but they quickly run out of stuff to try. So, I would love to hear more about this. Like, please share with me, with us, more about your experience here and what happens. Like, what is it that you're trying? And then what happens? And like, what exactly do you mean by handle words? I know I'm supposed to be like, the like focusing expert or whatever, at least in this context, but I don't really use that term. I don't really think about focusing and have that concept in mind, handle words. But when I hear that, and I obviously have encountered it before, I think of, like a word that helps you kind of like catch a felt sense, right? Like there's something there and you get a handle on it. Like something that you said connects and you can feel it like tugging at the felt sense a little bit, right? Like it does begin to articulate what that something is, what that felt sense is, right? So it's a handle that you can then pull on. I mean, for one thing, right, that's the entire challenge of focusing. So it's not supposed to be like super easy. Focusing is about starting with things that are completely without words, felt senses, right? Eugene Gendlin literally refers to this stuff in his writing as ... like an ellipses, basically, right? There's not a word for it. It's a something. So that's the entire project of focusing, is like beginning to go through that process of finding words for it. And sometimes it can be really hard, because they don't come to us in words. So obviously, yeah, you can suggest things. So I'm curious about what kind of suggestions you make, like what are your suggestions, what inspired your suggestions. But I'll start with this, what I've got on the screen right now. So sometimes the best articulation of my felt sense is a sound, right? So what I mean by this is that, again, like these things don't start out as words in us. They're just felt senses, and felt senses, they are a somatic thing, right? And so words themselves, right? Like the spelling of a word, the word that we write on a paper, that's a concept, that's an abstraction. But a word, when we say it, that's somatic because we're using our voice, making sound, right? So the sound is an expression of your body. And so what I sometimes will do, if it's like particularly unarticulable, I will just try to make a sound that expresses how I feel, and not necessarily like not making something up, not making up a sound, but one that I always come back to as an example, because this is often the situation in which I do it, is like if I'm feeling like kind of like gross and like ashamed or like anxious or something, there's like this kind of sick feeling almost. And obviously I'm describing it in reverse, so I can't really put these words to it in the moment. But when I have that, it's like, ugh, ugh, right? Or maybe it's like anger and you're just like, fuck, or whatever it is, Maybe for you, you could try this, is just making the sound that you want to make, making the sound that your body wants to make to express that feeling and that felt sense that you have. And then from there, having made the sound, maybe words will just start coming to you, right? And you can just experiment with that too, like just make sounds until you feel like you've caught, like a sound can be a handle, in a sense, in as far as it connects with and helps to like articulate in a way the felt sense. You can hold on to it, you can make the sound, and having made the sound, it becomes that much more clarified. And so maybe once you make the sound and you get like, oh yeah, that is the sound that expresses it, maybe words will just come to you, right? Or maybe now that you have the sound, you can try to describe the sound. And so you can try to use words to describe the sound and articulate the sound. And that becomes a little easier because it's easier to describe sound than this like amorphous, weird, ephemeral felt sense somewhere in our body, sometimes not in any one particular place, So you make a sound and you'd be like, oh, that sounds like having to throw up, or that sounds like sick, or it sounds like sad. Like you can just try out all sorts of things, right? It's like, oh, okay, what did that sound feel like? In what mood, what emotion would I make that sound? What emotion do I feel maybe as I make that sound? That's one of my favorite ways to get a handle on things when it's really hard to articulate. Another thing is just like patience, sometimes actually, Anne Weiser Cornell, she likes to say, anything is something, right? And so maybe you're having a hard time getting a handle on the felt sense, but maybe you can take a step back and be like, oh, okay, well, what I am noticing for sure is that I am trying to figure this out. Like I'm really making an effort to figure this out and find a handle so that I can do this thing, right? But you can take a step back and you can actually say, oh, actually, I'm noticing something in me that really wants to figure out what that other thing is, right? So there's a something that I can't quite figure out, I can't find a handle for, and there's a something else in me, this part of me, whatever, that really wants to figure that other thing out, right? So you just switch to something that you have more ability to articulate, and then you work with that. And maybe as you do that, the other thing will become clearer, and maybe just words will show up or whatever. In the process of putting handles on this other thing, you'll work through something else, So always feel free to change what you're attending to. You don't have to start with one felt sense and only focus on that thing for the whole time, You work with whatever is available to you. So that can be thoughts. I know that Jen is very much about body, felt sense in the body. Don't pay attention to thoughts, but other people have expanded on his work, and they do focusing with thoughts. Thoughts are something else. We experience our thoughts too. Sometimes you go spend some time with your thoughts. Focus on your thoughts. Be like, oh, my mind's going on about this. It gives me images, whatever. Spend some time with that. And maybe at some point, if you're, going slowly, being patient, continuing to always check back with your body, you'll realize, oh, suddenly I have this really, there's something in my body. Like there's a felt sense of something very obvious, and now it's actually easy to articulate. And so let me go and spend some time with that. So it's okay to not only be with your body. You can go, notice your thoughts. If images come to you, whatever. So that's, I think there's only, we'll see, but I think there's mostly only one more thing I want to share in answer to this question, at least for now. And that is with this whole idea of suggesting handles. One way that I think is actually extremely helpful for this is if you try the demon hugging process that I outline in the resources that I put together for Shift 30. There are these statements that you can make, and the way that I do it, I've been doing this every single day, throughout Shift 30, is you can make those statements, and then making them, see what happens. Go slowly. There's no rush. Sometimes I will say a thing and wait for like 3 minutes. Or at least it feels like 3 minutes. Probably not 3 minutes, but it feels like almost an excessively long time. But you say it, and then you wait. And just see if anything comes. So try that. Check out the resources document. There's that steps that I wrote, as well as an audio explanation and an audio demo of that demon hugging process, and give those statements a try. So maybe whatever it is that you decide to use when you're doing those statements, say it, and then sometimes I like to switch gears and start thinking about it in IFS. It's like you make this statement about yourself, and then having said it, suddenly it's like you've made this claim about who you are and how you are. And having made that claim, all the other parts that, if there are parts that are, have something to say about that, they'll show up. And they're like, or like, and so suddenly there's this activity of parts that maybe wasn't happening before because of making this sort of maybe audacious statement about yourself, and it's sort of a way to call out your parts or call up felt senses. And then you can work You know, I mean, you can continue going through the exercise, continue going through that demon hugging process, or you can be like, oh, okay, now I'm noticing some stuff that wasn't really there before, and then follow those things. So yeah, that's what I would suggest, is try the sound thing. Just try use sound as a handle, basically. Try to make a sound that best represents, best articulates what you are feeling, what that felt sense is in you. If it were a sound, what would it be? Try that and then see what happens. Maybe try also just waiting a little longer in between, you know, as you're focusing. Just wait a little longer. Maybe things will show up. Maybe you'll notice things. Another thing, right? Allow yourself to go to your thoughts. It doesn't have to only be body stuff, because you can go to your thoughts and maybe that'll be a great avenue, and you'll go somewhere else, and maybe you'll even just get lost in a train of thought and it'll go somewhere really helpful. Who knows? Or maybe you'll be with your thoughts for a little bit and your thoughts will point you back into your body at some point, you know? So use whatever is most available to you, in the sense that if you can't find a handle, you can actually then just focus on that part of you, that's something in you that really wants to find a handle. Because you have a handle for that, because you can probably say what that is, right? You articulated this question. And then finally, give the demon hugging statements and process a shot, and see if by saying some of those statements about yourself, that kind of calls up parts and felt senses that weren't there before. It does for me pretty much every single day, in pretty surprising ways. So yeah, those are my suggestions. And also, if I totally missed the mark on the question, please let me know, and I'm happy to continue talking about this stuff and address your actual question if it is something else entirely. So yeah, let me know. And thanks for asking the question. It's super helpful for me, and I think other people in the group, and for people who maybe hear this video in the future. So yeah, until then, have a great day, evening, and I'll see you soon enough. Cheers.